Yes, another member showcase, and we have an esteemed guest today. This marvelous Friday, Cyndi Nagel, who, it's funny. We were just talking about how I feel like I've known Cyndi for years, but it really has only been a couple years or so, which I can't even say. Like saying a couple years doesn't even make sense to me. But I do remember during the pandemic, I think that was when you made your first appearance on one of our casts, and I remember you were in an empty office building, and
Yep.
you were like the only one there, and it was just sort of strange, like the whole thing. But since then, you've been so active in this community and so helpful, so instrumental in helping build like quality programming into what we do. So I'm really feel honored that you're doing this, and we get to talk more just about you, because that's important.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, and it's one of my favorite networking groups by
Oh,
far. There
awesome.
will be a few, but this one's one of my favorites for sure.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and you are actually a part of a lot, so I actually take that compliment. Uh, that is a good one. I really appreciate that, and I do think that we have a lot of the same sort of values and priorities in how we look at things like this, how they should work. And so I think that's one of the reasons why you helping so much with these events has worked so well, is because kind of you have the same kind of ideas that I do. So thank you. But enough about that. Let's talk about you. We started talking a little bit about your background, and that you have been an L&D veteran for over 2 decades. That is a really, really long time doing this. But the one thing that I had pointed out was the fact
when I was 12. Yeah.
Wait, what?
No, I'm kidding. I was 12 years old. Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
But you have done. It's really like just been with a couple companies.
It
But
has.
you've done a variety of functions. You were at Sports Chalet, was it Sports Chalet? And
Mm-hmm.
then, of course,
Fortunately.
Belkin for the last 7+ years.
Yeah.
But the one interesting thing about that is you've always started out as a team of one.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just talk about that experience a little bit? Like walking in, team of one, was it a situation where you were the accidental instructional designer that came in, or with a huge, Belkin International is a huge company. You coming in being a team of one there is hard for me to imagine, but I know the first time I spoke to you, you were a team of one there.
Yep.
But how did that work out? Can you tell us just the story of both places?
Yeah, absolutely. I was working at Sport Chalet as a college student, and it was just a part-time college student, money to have some money to do things.
Mhm.
And I enjoyed all the perks, right? Because when you worked at a Sport Chalet, it was free skiing and free scuba lessons. And so it was a way for me as a poor, broke college student to find some, self-care and recreation.
Yeah.
I identify with any L&D pros that talk about how they fell into it accidentally, because that's exactly what happened with Sport Chalet. So I became one of the facilitators within that team. So I was working in store management, running a store in San Diego. I was doing my finishing my education at Point Loma Nazarene College at the time, studying psychology, and so I was doing practicum work for my psych degree, mental hospital across the street from the store. And so again, just got into retail to just have some fun and make some money. But I loved it so much. I loved the environment. I loved the community that came from working in that space. And I had the opportunity to become a facilitator, a new hire facilitator. And I also was very good at sales. And so my buyer would reach out to me and go, what are you doing? This category is like double digits strong. Can you train the other salespeople from the other stores? And so that's what I did. So I started to train sales skills, selling skills, new hire orientation. Eventually, they would ask me to write some educational brochures around product for consumers. So I'm creating like pamphlets on how to select a hiking boot or how to buy a tennis racket.
Wow.
And so it just kind of accidentally happened, and then before I knew it, there was not a training position within the company, but I was holding out that someday there would be, and I could move into HR.
Yeah.
Because my psych degree would work well with HR.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. After about 3 years, the role finally became available, and I became the training and recruitment supervisor. So I was managing all of the retail store training, and I was doing all recruitment postings for the company at the time had about 19 stores.
Wow.
So, there was a lot of hands-on. It was from sales training to manager training to operations types of training, systems trainings. I ended up spending 22 years there.
Wow.
And I did start as a team of one because the position didn't exist.
Yeah. So it was a brand new thing.
Yeah. Right. And I had a psych degree. I didn't have instructional design background or any of that. So, e-learning came up when we decided to change our legacy register system to a new updated fancy touchscreen system. And they said, yeah, you've got to train the 1,500 employees on how to use the system.
Wow.
And so it was like, well, maybe I can do this multimedia training thing that's happening back then. That's what it was called. And they let me purchase Captivate, and I made some e-learning modules for our POS system.
Wow.
Like Captivate 3 or something like that.
So
that, of course, was super helpful because I learned so much about developing e-learning. I met a lot of key people. I was able to spend a week in New York doing a Captivate Masters class.
Wow.
Josh Cavalier.
Oh, really? Josh back then, huh?
Yeah, he was the Captivate guy back then.
Wow.
I met a lot of people there and realized while I went to that week in New York to learn all about this tool and creating videos and e-learning from Josh, who at the time was the master, I met this great group of people. And so that was the aha, I need to network with people. And so that kind of created in me the opportunity to connect with people outside of my organization, either through clubs or classes or workshops like that or conferences, because I was learning as much from them as I was from reading books or, I was just trying to figure it all out.
You're right. No, I love that. And I actually have some questions about that I have in the QA section, and we'll get to that. But I am curious, when did you realize that there was this thing called instructional design, or and all of that?
I mean, it just kind of happened organically. I was creating workshops for each of the different parts of the store and operations, eventually creating workshops for our corporate teams as well, how to use Excel or how to understand a P&L statement. And every time a new project came up, I would try to infuse more of our opportunity to create e-learning because it was easier. Of course, it had its challenges because this was all new. And as a retail organization, it was pretty tough to get permission to have in the store. But we figured it out eventually. And over time, I finally did build up a team of people that worked with me. And I had, I had my bike specialty guy. We did all our bike mechanics had to be trained, and I ran all those programs. We had all our scuba department employees that had to be trained and certified, and I ran all of that too. And so I did eventually build to a team of 5, and then the company ended up going out of business. They were consumed by a venture capital group, and can go either way when that happens. And so that's how I ended up at Belkin, because that company went out of business. So at the end, I was running training for 5,000 employees, 55 stores, multiple states.
Wow.
Corporate manufacturing, the manufacturing side of it for any of the in-house stuff, branded stuff, distribution, our DC employees, multilingual training, Spanish for them, compliance, managing all of the compliance, and doing it all in-house. I was teaching workplace harassment because it was retail and e-learning. We did some e-learning with the register systems and some of the store trainings, but
Yeah.
a lot of it was face-to-face.
That's really intense, Cyndi. That's a lot. That's that's pretty amazing. Now, during that time, did you ever formally go after any type of instructional design certification, anything like that? No.
No, I didn't have time. As a team
Yeah.
of one, I just
Yeah.
didn't have time. Those programs would pop up and I just didn't have the time to do it. But I also was very tapped into that networking skill
Right.
that I realized early on.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I found groups that I could, ATD was something I tapped into,
Hmm.
and conferences, of course, Learning Guild.
Hmm.
The Learning Guild conference was super helpful.
Hmm.
Through Josh, I would meet other people,
Right.
so Josh was kind of a mentor for me early on because he
Mhm.
taught me so much,
Yeah.
and I still use so many of those things today.
Totally.
Yeah.
So Captivate 3, gosh, is that like early 2000s, right?
Yeah,
2003,
really
2000.
early. I probably like 2007, 2008.
Okay.
I had to
Okay.
build the POS training, and then once I did that, a few years later, we transitioned to SAP, and I had to do all the SAP
Oh
training.
my
So same
gosh.
thing. I made all the e-learning for it for the
Yeah.
stores, and imagine you've got to train 5,000 people
Mhm.
how to use this system. We only had a few weeks between the old system sunsetting and the new system going live. There was no like crossover time.
Mhm.
That was the old was getting cut off and the new
Yeah.
was going live. So the easiest way to do that was a combination of some e-learning. We did some face-to-face classes for some of the store managers just to
Mhm.
give them a bit more like an intense, a couple of people in the store that knew the system really well. But for the
Yeah.
masses, we just focused on the most common functions and built e-learning around that.
Wow. Wow. And so then you moved on to Belkin. Was that
Yeah.
a similar situation where it was a brand new role, or did you fill a
Yeah, I mean,
position?
at the time in 2016, there wasn't a lot of L&D roles in Southern California available. I was interviewing for probably everything that was available.
Really?
So I was interviewing for Oakley. I was interviewing for Gallo, the winery. I was interviewing with Asics. So some of the sporting goods brands that were in
Yeah.
the area that I was
Okay.
connected to. And Belkin popped up on LinkedIn as a job posting. I did know someone that worked there, but I applied without telling her I was going to apply for it. And the role was actually a sales product training role,
Hmm.
sales training manager. So it wasn't going to be all of the things I was doing, leadership development, systems, and everything, but it was a way in. If there's anything I know how to do, it's how to teach sales and
Yeah.
how to help move the numbers, right?
Nice.
So I was hired. Thankfully, I was only out of a job for a month between being one of the last people at Sport Chalet, was the last of 8, and starting at Belkin. It was only a month. Thank God. I was very lucky in that
Wow.
period. But so I came in at Belkin as only sales training and focused on supporting our sales teams that needed product training around the consumer electronics we make specific for customers. For example, one of our customers, a big one, is Best Buy, and the
Mhm.
way they train their sales staff is e-learning. So
Mhm.
they didn't have anybody on staff that could build those and build them quickly. Well, I can do that. So
Yeah.
to be able to build those and deliver them to our retailers so that they can load them into their LMSs, that was key. And then also think like outside of the box. Sometimes we had an app that we had to create training for, so I had to figure out how to use Captivate to replicate an app.
Yeah.
And so it's always kind of been this learning process. I've studied the theories of adult learning through books,
Mhm.
through conferences,
Yeah.
through webinars. But yeah, I don't have a formal, I still just have a psychology degree from way
Yeah.
back when.
Gosh, I have so many questions. Is Captivate still your primary tool whenever you're building?
I use Captivate, I use Rise
Mhm.
probably the most because it's
Okay.
quick and easy, and I'm a team of one again. I'm back
Yeah.
to being a team of one. So a little bit about Belkin. So I started as sales training 7 years ago, and then just before the pandemic, an opportunity came. They created the first training role for the company, and I interviewed for it, and I got it.
Yeah.
And so I'm back to being a team of one and really just starting from scratch, building out the whole ecosystem of what learning engagement is for our companies, beyond product. Now it's, skill training, leadership development,
Wow.
systems, all of it.
Oh
So
my God.
yeah,
I'm
building
still,
from scratch.
it's hard to wrap my mind around. I mean, the array of products that Belkin has, and I've been a fan of Belkin products for years. It seems like there would have been a role to cover all of that, especially like on the sales side, like for a long time. But
I think it's
that's
actually really common in consumer technology that the product managers and marketing teams handle that.
right.
So,
Okay. Yeah.
Belkin has functioned very much like a startup since the beginning, and that's how startups are. The
Yeah.
product managers and the marketing teams create the training. So, being able to add a new element like creating e-learning was new to Belkin. That was,
Yeah.
even when I came in 7 years ago, they were like, "What? We can do this?
Hmm.
Great!"
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that helped out our marketing team, who was focused on really like one pagers and short videos. Um,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
amazing. Can you share at all, like what having somebody formally in your role, with the impact it's had on Belkin?
Oh yeah. So the at the time they brought me in, there was a brand new product that Belkin was coming out with, and it was really a service as well as a consumer tech product. So it had to do with screen protection. So we make screen protectors for phones.
Mhm.
Go to the Apple phone, you buy a new phone, they're probably going to sell you a Belkin product.
Mm.
Well, at the time that they brought me in, we were creating a system that required application. So it was a skill that sales reps needed to learn aside from just selling the product. They needed to use this machine and use it quickly. And so anytime we launched a new customer, it was developing e-learning customized to that customer, creating some training assets that they could share with their teams, going to those stores if they wanted face-to-face
Mhm.
instruction. So that required some travel for me. But I enjoy that. It's been
Yeah.
fun going all over the world training people on Belkin.
Mhm.
And probably the most significant success is the sales related to that screen protection training. We were able to increase sales in one retailer that hadn't done any of the training. They just tried to launch it cold. And we were able to increase their sales by 60%
Wow.
in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
So it can be very effective if you do it well.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. We just made very simple, short trainings that people could digest on the go. And you just have to know the audience, right? So it's about analyzing the need. Um, in that particular circumstance, it was mobile store employees. They don't have a lot of time to learn.
Mm.
They're trying to make sales. Every hour counts. Every dollar counts. And thank you, Amanda. I can see your
I
comment.
know. I'm really. Jennifer is saying intense seems like an understatement. Go, Cindy. And then Amanda says your training was so fun for that, and I think because of your approach, you got them excited about it. I know I
We
enjoyed.
did. We did enjoy it. It was about making it interactive, creating some contests around who knows it best,
Yeah. Yeah.
incentivizing in terms of it feels good to learn it,
Yeah.
and it feels good to make more money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just tap into the motivations for that learner, and you go from there.
I have to ask this question, Cindy, because it just keeps on ringing in my head. But why didn't you stay in sales? Why not just like stay
Because
in
I
sales?
love the learning, the leadership development part of it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
one of the things I really missed, once I did come to Belkin, was I wasn't doing leadership development anymore, and
Hmm.
that was tough. I really really missed it.
Hmm.
So I held out hope that, and it just kept kind of letting HR know, hey, I have a background in management workshops. I have a background in delivering compliance training if you ever need me, but I was just to let them know.
Right.
And then I heard through the grapevine that they were talking about bringing in an LMS, and I would ping, my people partner and say, hey, I have experience in this. If you want to pass it on, I can help you guys. I've done that. I've built RFPs. I've interacted with LMSs, and so I love the leadership development side.
Well, be more specific about that. Like, what is it that you love about the leadership development piece?
I particularly like helping leaders understand how to be more effective with their teams. And so not just facilitating the workshops, but teaching them skills that help them manage their teams better. And then ultimately, the success that comes with that, less turnover, more promoted employees, higher engagement scores, all of that comes from, employees suddenly becoming these superstars because I've helped that manager coach that employee and have turned on that, that fire that turns them into a good employee. So that's leadership development. That's my favorite part.
Yeah. It's so interesting because you're a team of one. It seems like you should have a team.
I should have a team. So, and I remind my boss that often, so, I need a team. We could do so much more if I had a team. So, and the other part of being a team of one and this department being relatively new to Belkin is that I have to build the budget.
Yeah.
But that's a challenge. I kind of enjoy that challenge. An example of that would be when they did pick an LMS, they picked it without me, and I wouldn't have picked the LMS that they had picked. So we were kind of stuck with it. So when I did transition into the role, we had one more year on that system, and I tried so hard to make it work. And the reason it wasn't so much that the LMS was a struggle to work with, because I could figure out how to post the courses and I could figure out all the reporting stuff. The learners didn't like it.
Right.
They need to like it. They need to want to go there, and they needs to be easy.
Yeah.
And they struggled with that even after trainings and all of that. So, so we went from what was a very budget LMS to right now we're implementing Cornerstone. So I'm so excited because it's a complete 180 from where we were to what we're about to launch in October.
Oh, October then is when you're.
Yeah, we're at the end of implementation. We're about to do our UAT. And but it's a night and day difference, and I didn't get more budget. So it requires negotiation, and it took about 2 years to get to here. And but we're here, and I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, how about this one? This is somewhat connected, but Belkin's ethos revolves around understanding people and connecting them to things that they love.
Right.
How do you do that with your training? Yeah.
So the focus this past year has been, especially as we're building up for the new LMS, has been that the employee has to own their learning, right? So you have to do the work individually. You have to know what skills you want and need to build, and you have to partner with your manager. And so it's been a lot of sessions this year around that, around how to own your career development, about creating that path for making things happen for yourself, much like I have, right? Like I made these jobs manifest because I wanted them to happen, but I also kind of set up a plan in the background that I was working on. So we've been working on mapping your career skills, and that motivates people, because if we can show your manager that you're invested in developing within your role, or maybe that you're maxed out, you're at the height of your role, there's nowhere to go but your boss's job, and your boss isn't going anywhere. You're so motivated because we want your boss to know that you can do that job, or maybe cross into another area, and we'll be willing to take that chance. If you're skilled and qualified and you want to go work in China and help the product management team there, we'll help you do that by upskilling. So it's about just making it, finding the motivation for the learner, making it personal, encouraging them to focus on growth mindset, simple stuff, being willing to change because, just like our products have to iterate and become better,
Hmm.
as people within our skills, you have to iterate or become better.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because the world is changing, it's changing fast. So you've got to be constantly looking to learn and upskill, and what worked then might not work today. What wouldn't have worked then might work today. It's just a
Hmm.
matter of critically looking at it,
Hmm.
analyzing
Hmm.
the process, and making it as simple as possible.
I love talking to folks to L&D folks that have that significant talent development streak in them, and it seems
Yeah.
like you definitely have that. How much of, I mean, when you think about yourself, how much is that, how significant is that in what you do, the talent development part, versus just doing the training function and all that, but building people, like how high a priority is that for you?
It's the highest priority. I mean, my title is talent development manager. So I
Okay.
take that pretty seriously. I
Hmm.
could just be serving content, but if I'm not helping people connect that to a personal goal, then I'm doing a disservice to the company.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it. I need to have employees realize that no one's going to hand you the knowledge. You have to want it,
Yeah.
and then I'll help you find it.
Yeah.
So today I'm doing a lot of skill building around having growth mindset, building your skill sets, figuring out what your skill sets are and
Mhm.
what you need to grow into. We're focused on future technology because we're consumer tech. So AI, machine learning, that's all part of our business too.
Yeah.
Um, Sales is always important. Our PMs, it's about product management, project management. It's about listening to the voice of the customer. So effective listening.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of just basic, fundamental, like leadership and self-leadership things that I'm focused on,
Mhm.
aside from serving up the LMS content.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so, yeah, because you have, talking to you initially, we're talking about Captivate and you building e-learning, but there is also just, you're obviously so strong at the talent development part and doing all that too. It's just such that is a potent mix, and I admire it greatly. So I just have a couple more questions because we're hitting at time, but gosh, there's so much that I could ask you. I'd like to know individuals that have had a significant impact on your career.
My boss, the last boss I had at Sports Chalet, she's still a mentor of mine. Her name's Cyndi Stein. Um, she just, if I asked, and that's the key, right? You have to ask your boss if you have an interest and you want to upskill. You have to ask your boss, and a good manager will support that, and that's what
Yeah.
she did. She supported that, so she let me go to these conferences. She let me have these memberships, and Belkin paid for it, and it wasn't like all the time, but I was judicious because we had a small budget, but she let me be involved in those things. Like sending me for a week in New York to learn how to use Captivate was huge,
Hmm.
huge. It would have taken me months to learn how to do what I learned in a week,
Yeah.
And so she was super instrumental. And then I've just met so many people in the industry through the groups.
Hmm.
I mean, Kara's a great example. Kara
Hmm.
North, love Kara. We
Hmm.
finally were able to meet in person, but I feel like same like you. I feel like I've known her for years. We
Yeah.
met like a couple years ago,
Hmm.
virtually.
Hmm.
Josh I tell people he's my mentor because he taught me so much about Captivate, taught me so much about creating videos, taught me about marketing, e-learning. So I always tell people if you're just getting started, learn from Josh. He's amazing.
Yeah, that's Josh Cavalier for the listeners out there.
I mean, there's so many people that
Uh-huh.
have helped me here or there. There's groups locally that have been really helpful. There was a group that I was going to called the Learning Benchmark group. We would meet once a year and have a 2-day conference, much like we do with TLDC, but they were in person at Cal State Fullerton. And it was
Nice.
just like what we do through TLDC, but it was live in
Hmm.
Fullerton. And so different practitioners coming in, sharing best practices. I made so many connections and still connected with so many people from those.
Love it.
It's hard to say just one person. I
Right.
tap into my network because I'm a team of one.
You do. And I have a question about that. But first, let me get to Jennifer's asking, how do you balance supporting others' growth as a team
Right.
of one with developing your own growth path?
Yeah. Well, I'm constantly learning. It's just something it's just I don't know what it is. It's something in me. I'm kind of constantly trying to stay in the know in terms of growth. So I do attend a lot of seminars and webinars personally. I invite the rest of the HR team to do the same, and then we share those learnings. So it's more than just I'm attending a webinar for myself, but I'm bringing that information back and sharing it with the team, or
Yeah.
I'm implementing a program that I was able to create out of that webinar and share it with the team. So a good example of that is like Life Labs learning. As I was transitioning back into Belkin and had to tap back into learning and development after a 5-year hiatus,
Hmm.
they've been instrumental. They do free workshops all the time, and they tell you we'll send you the deck and you can reuse it and use it in your own organization. And I do a lot of that stuff.
Wow.
So yeah, and it helps me to not only upskill personally, but it helps me to each one teach one. If you can teach it, you become better at being a leader, an example of it. And that's so I do the coordination of the e-learning. I do facilitation at least twice a month within the organization. I bring in
Hmm.
speakers. Um, and so and then I provide a lot of just posts on the internet, a lot of like micro learning links to the team every month. We create a
Hmm.
schedule a year out to know what to focus on every month.
Do you, I mean, because it seems like you must have like a specific strategy. I mean, I saw, what was it? You were signed up for another L&D conference that kind of went down a rabbit hole with that one. What was it? Oh, Navigate 23, which is
Yeah,
coming up. I mean, is
yeah,
it
it's coming up. It showed up in my inbox, and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. I'll sign up for it. As long as
okay?
there's recordings, I can catch it eventually.
Right.
And that's where that's what I do.
And that's pretty much kind of the way you do things. You look, just stuff that pops up, and you just
Yeah, LinkedIn. So you can save hashtag searches,
mhm.
and so if I save, AI and L&D or something like that, then artificial intelligence or e-learning, then I usually will see in my feed workshops. So
Okay.
I follow people that I respect.
Mhm.
So, some of the industry people, there's a whole list. So you can go on my LinkedIn page and see who I follow, and you'll see there are a lot of L&D people in there.
Right. Yeah.
And and they're the ones that are posting good information. So
Mhm.
I follow a lot of Slack groups. So TLDC is not the only networking community I belong to.
Yeah.
Another one called Talent Development Think Tank. That's amazing. It's been really interesting, and very strategic. So that has helped in terms of that kind of content with the talent management and development side of it. I need a
Mhm.
lot of strategic thinking. I volunteered at ATD, and then I volunteered for a pre-certificate course on talent management and
Mhm.
strategy. And so, the good thing is I have support from my leadership to do those things individually, but then I'm also implementing what I've learned into my work somehow. So
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah. I would, yeah, it seems like you actually probably have a model that you use, that other people would find useful for for implementing all this stuff into your professional development, because it really is, it seems like it's a constant process of nurturing what you're learning, and you're just completely benefiting from it. I mean, being involved with all these networking groups, and just staying on top of that. But then it's also just the fact that that you're that Belkin supports you doing this, and allows you to stay like focused on that. That is actually a
Yeah,
huge deal. I think that's
it's really helpful.
right. Last question. You've been doing this for, for a while, and you've seen trends, you've seen things come and go. Anything in particular coming up that you're kind of have your eye on?
I think with AI it feels very different.
Yeah.
You and I both went through the LMS boom and the micro learning boom and all that stuff where, and here we are. I'm implementing, Cornerstone, but AI is definitely one that I have my eye on. For me, it's been super helpful. I'm team
Mhm.
one, so I use it almost every day.
Right.
Brainstorming, research, when I get tongue tied and I can't think of what to write because,
Yeah.
so I use it for things like that. Coming up with quiz questions, activity scenario examples. I could use it for all kinds of stuff,
Hmm.
for my workshops or for any of the e-learnings that I'm building out. So I think it has a lot of potential. And I think some of the new tools that are coming out are incredible. So it's still very early. So I want to keep a close eye on it.
Yeah.
Um, I can see that there are some companies that will probably show up and go away pretty quickly.
Mhm.
But, I feel like I've been around long enough to tell when there's one that's probably going to stick around a little bit longer.
Right. Yeah. Because even the VR AR thing, just XR, that was hot for a while. You could go to one of the conferences, go to the expos, and you'd see like, just people's booths would have something like that to highlight it just to get
Yeah.
you there. But then,
There's so much of it that's helping.
right.
One example for me, and that I can give you, tangible example. Early on, I was having to create product training, not only in English, but other languages because we're a global brand. And
Mhm.
the customers would be, if it's in Canada, then they require English, but they also require Québécois, French, right? Canadian French. So I know a little bit of French from high school, but, I can't translate it entirely. So that is very fast today compared to the process that I had to rely on 7 years ago.
Wow.
That would have been a request to my translation localization team. It's probably a month turnaround. By then, it's late for the vendor because by the time the training request comes to me, the product has hit stores and I've only got about 3 weeks to create it. So,
Yeah.
it's and launch it. And so yeah, today that's easy. I can
Mhm.
translate something in many languages very quickly today,
Yeah.
where I wouldn't have been able to do that years
Yeah.
ago. The days of having to create my own product videos because my marketing team doesn't have time to slot it into the production schedule. That's getting easier.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much. There really is. There is. I mean, it's just happening. It's just sort of a done deal. I know that in a lot of ways, I don't know what I'd do without ChatGPT at this point,
I
and
know.
there are other technologies that I've toyed with and played around with that have ended up sort of dropping off. But this one, it's definitely feels like it's going to be around, and I'm looking forward to having this event, coming up on September 20th, and then seeing what are we going to be talking about next year, like how
Yeah, I love the
different.
time capsule element of this too.
Right. Yeah. I really love that. And and I've been wanting to do this for months. So I'm glad that it's finally coming together.
Yeah.
Um, okay, Cyndi, I think that's it. I am so glad that you finally took the time out and were able to have this conversation, learn more about you. Um, you've just got such an interesting background. Your journey has been really interesting. And a wealth of knowledge. I encourage everybody to connect with Cyndi. Great addition to your network to have Cyndi there, and I'm sure that if you continue to attend TLDC events and do anything with this community, you'll probably see Cyndi around because she's really become instrumental in helping the quality of a lot of our programming. Let's see, I've got a couple comments here. Jennifer, this was great. Thank you. And Amanda saying thank you as well.
Amanda used to work with me at the company, so we are good friends. She's
Love
no
it.
longer with the company and hopefully about to start a brand new gig, but yeah, she's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Have a great weekend. And let's see. I'm not sure who's on the agenda next week, but I do know in a couple weeks we do have the AI Labs event coming up. That one is free. You can go to thetldc.com if you want to learn more about that. I have a little banner right on the top there to click you into that for that event. I don't know. We have about 350 people registered for it. So
I shared it out to all of my other networks, so it's going to blow up.
yeah, I think it's going to. Yeah, I hope. Yeah. I hope so. I would love it to sell it out just because I think the discussion is going to be just as important as the sessions, because I know there are probably more people out there using AI than than we thought. So I think that's going to be fun. I think it'll be fun.
It is going to be fun, Jennifer. You're right.
All right. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and close it down. Thanks again. And we'll see everybody next time. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
Lise.
Sure.